The knock came at 11:47 at night. Not loud. Not urgent. Just 3 soft taps on the front door, the kind that made the silence after feel heavier than it should. Lena was still awake, curled on the couch with a half-eaten bag of chips and the TV turned down low, because her mother had asked her twice already to go to bed and she had nodded both times without actually moving. She was 12. That was practically her job. Please, if enjoy watching my story, subscribe, like and comment where you are watching from so we could grow together. Thank you. She heard the knock and went still. The TV kept going. Some late-night host laughing at something that wasn't funny, but Lena's eyes moved to the door and stayed there. They lived on Birch Street in a neighborhood that wasn't dangerous but wasn't loud either. Nobody knocked this late. Nobody knocked at all, really, unless it was the neighbor Mr. E's asking to borrow the phone charger he always forgot to return. 3 taps again. Almost apologetic. Lena. Her mother's voice came from the kitchen, sharp and immediate. Martha had ears like a hawk. She heard everything before Lena even processed it. Don't touch that door. Lena hadn't moved. But now she wanted to. Martha appeared in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room, dish towel still in her hands, her expression already locked into that specific look. The one that meant she was calculating, not panicking. She was 41 years old and had raised Lena alone for every single one of those 12 years. And there was a certain kind of stillness she carried in her body when she felt the world needed watching. She crossed the room and placed herself in front of Lena before she reached the door. "Who is it?" Martha called, her voice steady. Pause. Then a small voice. A child's voice. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to bother you. My name is Ethan. I got lost in the park and my phone died and I haven't eaten since lunch and I don't know anyone here and your light was on. I'm really sorry." The words tumbled out fast, like he'd been rehearsing them for courage. There was a tremor underneath them, not performance, just fear. Real, quiet, exhausted fear. Martha's eyes narrowed. He looked at Lena. Lena looked back at her. "Don't," Martha said, reading her daughter's face perfectly. "Mom, I know what you're thinking. He's a kid." That's exactly how these things work, Lena. You open the door for a child and then the people who sent the child come in behind them. It's a tactic. It's been on the news. Lena stared at her. "He sounds like he's about to cry." Martha was quiet. Through the door they could hear the boy shift his weight. A nervous shuffle, the kind that came with standing in the dark hoping someone would say yes. "Please," he said again. Just the one word. Nothing dramatic. Just tired. Martha exhaled through her nose, slow and controlled. She looked at the door. He looked at Lena. She made the decision that every mother makes when her instinct to protect and her instinct to help pull in opposite directions. She opened the door, but she stood in the gap, filling it completely so that whatever was out there had to go through her first. The boy standing on the porch was small. He had a backpack that was too big for him, a jacket that was thin for the weather, and eyes that were red around the edges. His phone was in his outstretched hand like a peace offering, screen black, completely dead. He looked up at Martha, then past her at Lena, and he didn't try to move forward. He just stood there, waiting. He was maybe 10, maybe 11. His face was the face of a child who had already cried once tonight and was working very hard not to do it again. "How long have you been out there?" Martha asked. "Since maybe 8, he said. "I was at the park with a friend. And then I couldn't find him and I started walking and I didn't know the streets and my phone died before I could call my dad." Pause. "He's going to be really worried." Martha studied him. She studied the street behind him. Empty, quiet, just the orange glow of a street lamp and a dog barking somewhere far off. She looked at his shoes. Muddy. She looked at his hands. Shaking slightly and not from cold alone. She stepped aside. Come in, she said. You're going to sit at the table where I can see you and you're going to eat something and then you're going to call your father. And if anything about this feels wrong to me at any point. She left the sentence unfinished. She didn't need to finish it. Ethan nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. He stepped inside and Lena moved to give him room. He smelled like outside air and dried grass. He sat at the kitchen table exactly where Martha pointed, set his dead phone on the surface, and folded his hands in his lap like a boy who had been taught manners by someone who took them seriously. Martha heated up the leftover jollof rice from dinner without being asked. She did it in silence, her back to him, but her eyes cut to his reflection in the window above the sink every few seconds. Lena sat across from him and pushed the phone charger toward him without saying anything. He looked at it. Looked at her. Thank you, he said quietly. It's fine, she said. What grade are you in? 6th. Me too. They looked at each other for a moment. That particular sizing up that children do, faster and more honest than adults. And something settled between them. Not friendship yet. Just recognition. He wasn't strange. She wasn't cruel. That was enough for now. Martha set the bowl of rice in front of him. He said thank you again and started eating immediately, and she could see from the way he did it, quickly without any of the self-consciousness of a child performing gratitude, that he really hadn't eaten. That part at least was true. She sat down across from him, the dish towel still in her lap, and watched him. He ate the way her daughter ate when she came home from a long school trip, focused and grateful and a little bit desperate. He was about halfway through the bowl when he looked up and caught Martha looking at him, and instead of looking away he just said, I'm sorry. I know this is strange. I wouldn't have knocked if the light wasn't on. How old are you? Martha asked. 11. Almost 12. She nodded slowly. And your father, he's nearby? He's in the city. A flicker of something crossed his face. He's always in the city. He's always working. But he'll come. When he sees the missed calls, he'll come right away. There was a weight to that sentence. Not resentment, but the particular resignation of a child who had already made peace with a certain kind of loneliness. Martha heard it. He heard everything. What does he do? She asked. Casual. Easy. He runs a company, Ethan said and then seemed to decide something. A lot of companies, actually. People call him important. He says he's just busy. Martha's hand tightened slightly on the dish towel. What's his name? She asked, and she kept her voice even, kept it the same gentle tone, but something had shifted behind her eyes. Something private and controlled and very, very careful. Daniel. Ethan wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Daniel Osei. The kitchen was quiet for a moment. Martha stood up. Let me get you some water, she said and turned to the sink, and Lena, who had been watching her mother's face all evening, saw something in the line of her mother's shoulders that she had never seen before. Kind of bracing. Like someone pressing their back against a door. She didn't know what it meant. But she knew it meant something. Ethan's phone buzzed back to life 11 minutes later. The screen lit up and Lena, who was closest, startled at the sudden vibration on the table. Ethan grabbed it and his face went a color she couldn't name, relief and dread at the same time. The notifications loaded one after another. Missed calls, 23. Text messages. An emergency contact alert from someone listed only as Dad. Okay, he breathed. Okay. His thumb was already moving. He called. It connected in less than a second. Ethan. The voice came through the speaker. Deep, controlled, but underneath the control was something raw and shaking. Ethan, where are you? Tell me exactly where you are. Dad, I'm okay. I'm at someone's house. A lady and her daughter. They let me in and gave me food. I'm okay. A sound on the other end. Not quite a breath. Not quite a word. Something in between. The sound of a man releasing something he had been holding in his chest for hours. "Okay," the voice said. "Hey. Give the phone to the lady. I need the address." Ethan held the phone out to Martha. She was standing at the kitchen doorway. She had been standing there for a few seconds already, and Lena noticed that she had not moved closer the way she normally would. She took the phone slowly, like a woman who already knew what was coming, and pressed it to her ear. "Hello," she said. "Your son is fine. He's eaten. He's safe." And then she heard his voice, directly, clearly, not through a child's speakerphone, and every muscle in her face went very still. Lena watched her mother's eyes change. It wasn't fear. It wasn't grief. It was something older than both of those things. The look of someone who opened a drawer they had kept shut for 12 years and found everything exactly as they left it. "The address is 14 Birch Street," Martha said. Her voice was completely calm. "It's the house with the yellow door." Pause. "Yes. I'll make sure he stays until you arrive." She handed the phone back to Ethan without saying anything else. "He's coming?" Lena asked. "He's coming," Martha said. She went to the sink and turned on the tap and stood there for a long moment with the water running over her hands, not washing anything. Just standing. And Lena, who knew her mother better than anyone in the world, understood that now was not the time to ask questions. The cars arrived 18 minutes later. Lena heard them first. The low, smooth sound of engines that didn't rumble, that barely made noise at all, which somehow made them louder. She went to the window and pushed the curtain aside and counted. 3 black SUVs, moving in a quiet convoy, stopping one by one in front of the house like a small, well-organized procession. The neighbors' lights were already off. Nobody saw. "Mom," she said. "I know," Martha said from right behind her. The doors of the middle car opened first. 2 men in dark clothes stepped out and scanned the street before either of them looked at the house. Professional, deliberate, the kind of men who moved like they were paid to notice things. Then the back door opened. He was tall. That was the first thing. He moved quickly but without urgency. The walk of a man who had not been running, but had been containing the impulse to run for the past 20 minutes. He wore a dark coat and he had no tie, which on him looked like a detail someone had forgotten in a crisis. He was somewhere in his mid-40s, with close-cropped hair and the kind of face that had been good-looking so long it had simply become distinguished without anyone making a decision about it. He came up the front path and the door opened before he reached it because Ethan had flung it open and come out onto the porch, and the man dropped, without any hesitation, without any thought for the cold or the 2 men flanking him or the quiet street, down to his knees on the front path and caught his son. Lena had never seen anything like it. She had seen fathers hug their children before. At school pickups and birthday parties and airport arrivals. But this was different. This was a man who had been terrified. Genuinely, completely terrified. And was now holding the proof that his terror had been wrong. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just held Ethan with both arms tightly, and Ethan pressed his face against his father's shoulder and let out a shaking breath that he had clearly been holding for hours. "I've got you," the man said. His voice was quiet. "Oh, you're safe. I've got you. I'm sorry, Dad." "Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Are you hurt?" "No." "Did anyone?" "No. The lady was nice. She gave me rice." A sound that was almost a laugh. Almost. He stood up slowly, one arm still around Ethan's shoulders, and looked at the doorway. Martha was standing in it. The light from inside the house fell across her face, and the light from the street lamp fell across his. And they looked at each other across the front path for a moment that lasted much longer than the seconds it took. Lena, standing just behind her mother, watched both of their faces and understood something had happened. Something that had nothing to do with tonight and everything to do with a time she had never been part of. He came up the steps. "Thank you," he said. His voice was careful. "Even for taking him in. For keeping him safe." "He was a child at the door," Martha said. "There was no other choice." He reached into his jacket and produced a flat envelope. "I'd like to." "No." Martha's voice was not sharp, but it was final in the way that certain things are final. Not aggressive, just completely, quietly immovable. "We don't help people for money." He stopped. He looked at her. And Lena, watching from behind, saw something happen in his expression. A recognition that went deeper than her face or her name. Something like memory and something like pain. "Martha," he said. It was just her name. Just 2 syllables. But the way he said it, like something he had said privately to himself many times and was now finally saying out loud, made Lena's stomach go still. "You know him?" Lena asked. She hadn't meant to say it. It came out before she could catch it. Martha turned slightly. Her face was composed. Carefully, deliberately composed. "Come inside," she said to Lena. "It's cold." She said it gently, but it was the kind of gentleness that was also a door closing. Lena stepped back inside. But she left a gap at the door and stayed near it, and she listened. She heard her mother say, "Your son needs to go home and sleep." She heard the man say, "I know. I just need a minute." A silence. "You look exactly the same," he said. "I don't," Martha said. "Neither do you." Another silence. Longer. "I'll go," he said finally. "But I'm coming back tomorrow. If that's all right." "For what?" "Ethan won't stop asking about the girl. Your daughter." Pause. "She was kind to him." Martha was quiet for a long moment. "Fine," she said. "Come in the afternoon." Lena stepped away from the door before her mother turned back. She went to the couch and sat down and stared at the TV, which was still going, still laughing at something that wasn't funny. She heard the cars outside start up one by one and pull away. And then the door closed and her mother came and sat beside her, and neither of them said anything for almost a full minute. "Mom," Lena said. Who is he?" Martha took a slow breath. "Someone I knew a long time ago." "How long ago?" A pause that said everything. "A very long time." Lena looked at her. "Is that all you're going to tell me?" Martha looked back at her daughter, at the shape of her face, the set of her eyes, the way she tilted her head when she was waiting for an answer, and something passed through her expression that Lena couldn't read. It wasn't guilt exactly. It was more like the look of someone standing at the edge of something very high, deciding whether to jump. "For tonight," Martha said. "That's all for tonight." He came back the next afternoon at 2 o'clock. Without the convoy this time, just one car, him driving it himself, which Lena found strange without knowing why. Ethan was in the passenger seat and jumped out before the car had fully stopped, already looking toward the front door. Martha had spent the morning cleaning the house with the focused energy of a person who did not want to sit still and think. Lena had watched her move from room to room, wiping surfaces that were already clean, rearranging things that didn't need rearranging, and understood that her mother was managing something. She just didn't know what. The knock this time was confident, unhurried. Martha opened the door and looked at him with the same measured calm she had shown the night before, and he looked back at her with something that was trying very hard to be the same but wasn't quite making it. "Afternoon," he said. "Come in," she said. Ethan was already past both of them, craning his neck. "Is Lena here?" "Kitchen," Lena called from down the hall. He disappeared. Martha and Daniel stood in the entryway for a moment, the door still open, the afternoon light falling between them. "You didn't have to come personally," Martha said. "I know," he said. "I wanted to." She led him to the living room and they sat, him on the single armchair, her on the edge of the couch. And for a moment neither of them spoke, and from the kitchen came the sound of Lena and Ethan already talking over each other, already laughing at something. "She's a good kid," Daniel said quietly. "Yes," Martha said. "She is." He looked at her. Directly, without the careful management of the night before. "How old is she?" Martha met his gaze. 12. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of arithmetic and implication and the weight of something neither of them was saying yet. "Martha. Don't. I have to." "Not yet." He sat back. He put his hands on his knees. He was, she could see, a man who had learned over many years to wait for things, to bide his time, to hold his position, to not spend pressure until it was necessary. It had made him successful. It had also, she suspected, made him lonely. "All right," he said. "Not yet." They spent 3 hours there that afternoon. Ethan and Lena migrated from the kitchen to the backyard and then back to the kitchen, moving through the house with the ease of children who had known each other for years rather than hours, which was its own kind of miracle and its own kind of warning. Daniel and Martha talked, carefully at first, about nothing that mattered. The neighborhood, the weather, the school both children attended at separate ends of the city. And then about things that mattered more. He told her he had been married. Briefly, less than 2 years when Ethan was 3. The woman had not been right for him and he had not been right for her, and they had parted without cruelty and remained more or less civil for the boy's sake. She told him nothing in return. Not yet. But she listened and he noticed. When they finally left, Ethan made Lena promise 3 separate times that she would be home tomorrow, and she laughed and said yes, and he nodded with the seriousness of a child cementing a contract. Daniel stood at the door. He looked at Lena for a long moment, at the shape of her face, her eyes, the way she carried herself, and then he looked at Martha with an expression that was no longer a question. It was a certainty he was waiting for her to confirm. He did not confirm it. Not that evening. But the evening after that, when he came again, this time with groceries which she had not asked him to bring and could not quite bring herself to refuse, she sent the children to the backyard and told him to sit down. "I need you to stay calm," she said. He looked at her steadily. "I'm calm." "Daniel." "Martha. Say it." She looked at him for a long moment. At this man who had once been the most important person in her world, and who had then become a reason she had learned to build walls, and who was now sitting in her living room because his son had knocked on her door on a Tuesday night in November. She thought about all the ways she had imagined this conversation, all the reasons she had told herself it would never happen. "She's yours," Martha said. The room went very quiet. Daniel didn't move. He didn't flinch or reach out or stand up or do any of the things she had half prepared for. He just sat there and his face did something she had never seen his face do before. It came completely undone. Not in anger. Not in grief exactly. But in the way of a man who just understood in one sentence the full dimension of something he had lost without ever knowing it was his to lose. 12 years, he said. His voice was barely above a breath. "Yes. You left." It wasn't an accusation. It was just a fact laid down gently. "I left," she said. "I was scared. We weren't in a good place, Daniel. You remember that? You were building everything and I didn't think I could ask you for that. To stop. To choose something different. You could have told me about her." "I know. Martha. You could have told me." "I know." Her voice was steady but her hands, folded in her lap, were not. "I know I could have. And I have spent 12 years knowing it. There is not one version of what I did that I am proud of. But she is wonderful, Daniel. She is kind and she is smart and she is everything. And I didn't do it to hurt you. I need you to know that. He was quiet for a long time. The sounds from the backyard drifted in. Lena's laugh high and clear and Ethan's answering one. Two children who did not yet know they were half-siblings, playing in the fading afternoon light. What do we do now? He asked. Martha looked at him. I don't know, she said honestly. She doesn't know. I don't know how to tell her. I'll follow your lead, he said. On that part. On how and when. He stopped. But I am not leaving, Martha. I'm not going to pretend I don't know now. I can't do that. I'm not asking you to. He looked toward the backyard window. Lena was in the yard, throwing something for a neighborhood cat that had appeared on the fence. The same focused, gentle patience she had shown his son the night they met. The same patience that had been once one of the things he loved most about her mother. She looks like you, he said. Martha's throat tightened. She has your eyes, she said quietly. She always has. He didn't say anything to that. He didn't need to. The weeks that followed were strange and careful and full of things that were growing without anyone deciding to plant them. Daniel came often, always with Ethan at first and then sometimes alone, to talk to Martha about logistics and about the truth and about the impossibly complicated question of how you tell a 12-year-old girl that the man who has been showing up to her house for the past 3 weeks is her father. Lena noticed things. She noticed that Daniel always brought her specific foods. The plantain chips she mentioned once in passing, the specific brand of juice she reached for in the fridge. She noticed that he listened to her the way very few adults listen to children, with his full attention without the slight distraction that most grown-ups wore like a second face. She noticed that her mother watched her when Daniel was in the room, and that the watching was the particular watching of a person waiting to see if something broke or bloomed. She didn't ask questions anymore. She was 12, not young enough to miss it and not old enough yet to know what to do with what she was beginning to understand. Ethan had no idea. He had simply found the best friend he had ever had, and he treated that fact with the simple and absolute conviction of a child who does not question good things when they arrive. He saved seats for Lena in his imagination. He told her about his school and his dog and his father's habit of buying too many oranges and never eating them. He was easy and warm and completely himself, and Lena, who had always been a little bit lonely in the quiet, self-sufficient way of children raised by a single hard-working parent, found herself looking forward to his visits in a way that surprised her. She was not lonely when Ethan was there. She was also, she realized, not lonely when Daniel was there, and that realization confused her in a way she couldn't articulate. The evening it changed was a Wednesday. Lena came home from school to find Daniel already inside in the kitchen making tea, which her mother had not asked him to do and which he had apparently just done because he noticed the kettle and decided to be useful. Martha was at the kitchen table with papers from work spread in front of her, and the two of them were talking quietly, and the scene was so completely, unsettlingly normal that Lena stood in the doorway for a moment and felt something she couldn't name. Like she had seen this before. Like some part of her recognized it. "Hey," Daniel said, looking up. He smiled. The particular smile he had for her, the one that was slightly too careful, slightly too deliberate to be casual, though she couldn't have said why she thought that. "How was school?" "Fine," she said. "Where's Ethan?" "Coming later. He had a thing." Pause. "I came a little early today. Hope that's okay." She looked at her mother. Martha was looking at her papers. "Fine," Lena said again. She sat down at the table. Daniel set a mug of tea in front of her. The right kind, the kind she drank, not the kind her mother drank, and she looked at it and then looked at him. "How do you know how I take my tea?" she asked. He blinked. "You mentioned it," he said. "I don't remember mentioning it." A silence. Small and pointed. Martha looked up from her papers. The two of them, her daughter and this man, were looking at each other across the kitchen table, and the moment had the specific quality of something about to fall. She could feel it. She had been feeling it for days, the way you feel weather changing before the sky shows anything. "Lena," she said. Lena looked at her. And Martha, who had practiced this conversation 100 times in the dark, who had run through every possible version, every gentle entrance, every soft approach, opened her mouth and found that none of the practiced words were the right words. Found that there was no right version. Found that after 12 years of carrying a truth alone, the truth had simply run out of patience. "There's something I should have told you," Martha said. "A long time ago. And I'm sorry that I didn't. I want you to know that first, that I'm sorry and that everything I did because I thought it was right even when it wasn't." Lena was very still. "What?" Daniel didn't say anything. He sat down slowly across from Lena, and he put his hands flat on the table and he waited. "Daniel," Martha said, and her voice was very careful and very quiet, "is your father, Lena?" The kitchen was absolutely silent. Lena looked at her mother. Then she looked at Daniel. Then she looked at her mother again. Daniel watched her face cycle through the stages of understanding something that reconfigures everything, like a picture that was always one thing until someone told you what it actually was, and now you can't see the first thing anymore, no matter how hard you try. "What?" she said. Not loud. Not angry. Just searching. "I was pregnant when I left," Martha said. "I didn't tell him. I raised you on my own. And I thought I was protecting you both. From something complicated. From a situation that I didn't think was ready." A breath. "I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I have always known." Lena's eyes moved back to Daniel. He didn't try to speak. He didn't reach across the table. He simply held her gaze and let her look at him and look for whatever she needed to find. "You knew?" she asked him. "When you kept coming back, you knew?" "For about 2 weeks," he said. "I suspected longer. Your mother told me when she was ready. And you didn't say anything." "That was my choice," Martha said immediately. "I asked him to wait for me to tell you. He agreed." Lena was quiet for a long time. She was looking at the mug of tea, the right way, the detail that had opened this door. And her face was doing something complicated and controlled that looked very much like her mother's face when Martha was processing something she did not want to break down in front of someone else. "Ethan," she said suddenly. "Yes," Daniel said. "He's your half-brother. He doesn't know yet. That's also a conversation. When you're ready." She looked up at that. And something in her face, something small and involuntary, softened. Because Ethan was her friend. Had been her friend from the first night, from the frightened boy at the door with the dead phone. Had been her friend without any of this. And now he was more than that, and that part at least did not feel like a loss. "I need to think," she said. "Of course," Daniel said. "I need you to not be here right now." He stood up. He picked up his jacket. He looked at her one more time, with an expression that held no demand and no expectation, only a kind of open, careful hope, and he went to the door. He paused there. He did not look back. But he said quietly, "I'm not going anywhere, Lena. That's the only thing I want you to know tonight. I'm not going anywhere." Then he was gone. Lena sat at the kitchen table for a long time after the door closed. Martha didn't push. She went back to her papers and let her daughter sit and breathe and be, because that was what she needed. The space to hold something enormous without being required to respond to it yet. Outside, a car started and pulled away. In the backyard, a cat moved along the fence in the dusk. And in the kitchen, Lena put both hands around her mug of tea and felt the warmth of it and looked at her mother and said in a voice that was 12 years old and already ancient, "Did you love him?" Martha put down her pen. She looked at her daughter. At the face she had looked at every day for 12 years, this specific face with those specific eyes, and she told the truth the way she should have told it many times and never had. "Yes," she said. "I did." Lena nodded slowly. She drank her tea. She thought about Ethan and his backpack that was too big for him and his frightened knock in the dark. She thought about the word father, which had always been an absence and was now a presence, seated across from her at a kitchen table bringing the right tea. She thought about what came next. She didn't know what came next. She picked up her phone. She found Ethan's contact, saved just as his name, the way you save people you expect to keep, and she held it in her hand for a long moment, her thumb hovering over the screen. Somewhere across the city, Daniel Osei was driving home to a son who did not yet know he had a sister. Somewhere in this house, Martha was sitting with 12 years of held breath finally released. And somewhere between the truth that had just arrived and the life that would have to be rebuilt around it, Lena sat at the edge of a decision she had not been prepared to make tonight. Whether to call, whether to say anything, whether to be the one who started the next chapter, or to let it come to her. The phone was warm in her hand. The screen stayed dark. Outside, the night had fully arrived and the street was quiet and the yellow door was closed, and the small ordinary house on Birch Street held inside it the beginning of something that none of them, not Martha with her careful walls, not Daniel with his careful hope, not even Lena with her careful heart, knew yet how to name. Her thumb moved toward the call button. And stopped. And the story held its breath.